We have received a transmission from a Dalek on board the human rebel spaceship headquarters. What are our instructions? Seek, locate, exterminate. Seek, locate, exterminate. Exterminate, exterminate, exterminate. Exterminate, 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 exterminate. Orders received. Exterminate all humans. Exterminate all humans. Exterminate, annihilate, destroy. Daleks conquer and 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 destroy. Exterminate all humans. Exterminate all resistance. Exterminate, annihilate, destroy. Exterminate them. Exterminate them. Exterminate them. We are the superior beings. We are the superior beings. We are the superior beings. Exterminate, exterminate, exterminate.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of Doctor Who Series 8, Episode 2, Into the Dalek. We're going to go inside the Dalek, although it will be a bronze one. So, Into the Dalek. It's actually a bit strange that we got a Dalek episode as the second episode of the series, and it's only coming 2 episodes since their last appearance in the Time of the Doctor, which was right after the Day of the Doctor, which they were also kind of key role in. And most of those two don't really count as Dalek stories in the same lines as this or Asylum of the Daleks. They still have major roles in both those episodes, so it is kind of strange. It's 2 episodes afterwards, and 9 months. No, not even that. 8 months. 8 months and a bit since the last appearance. So 2 episodes and 8 months. That's how long it took between the last major Dalek appearance and the next Dalek story. Yeah, it'd been nearly 2 years since the last proper Dalek story, but this episode couldn't have waited until later in the series. Couldn't it have been episode 10? Or maybe skip the Daleks this series. Give the 12th Doctor's first Dalek story in Series 9. Then again, the Series 9 story they do give him... Oh, we'll get to that. The Series 9 Dalek story they give him. Into the Dalek, the plot. Actually, the story of this Dalek story is the first one in a while to actually take place in the future. A Dalek versus human battle. We haven't had that for a while. I think the last time we had that was Resurrection of the Daleks. Yeah, we've had humans versus Daleks, but in the past, we've had other species versus the Daleks, but I think Resurrection of the Daleks was the last time the Daleks actually went up against humans in the future, as well as the present, at time of that story being broadcast. So it's interesting we have a Dalek versus human space war in this episode. That's pretty interesting. The story sees the 12th Doctor rescue one of the fighters, Journey Blue, and take her back to their ship. Once they get back to the ship, the Doctor is requested to help a Dalek, an ill Dalek, which they have captured prisoner, and to find out what's wrong with it, as it's claiming it is a good Dalek and it needs medical attention. So the Doctor then gets Clara to help him because the Doctor needs companions in every single story in the new series now. That just seems to be the mindset of the Doctor. If you've got a companion who's you travel with most of the time, but they're not in the TARDIS all the time, but you've like your best current travelling companion at the moment, you then go and pop over to pick them up and then bring them over to have the adventure with, as opposed to having a single adventure with them, or depends on which companions are at the time. expanded media have other companions in the gaps. So it's not like the 12th Doctor is going to go and pick up, let's say, Frobisher, for example. He's not going to go up and pick Frobisher, he's going to go up and pick Clara, obviously, because they are more or less travelling together, but not all at the same time. This seems to be more of a thing with the Moffat era, whilst the RTD characters would go home for visits and stuff, but they wouldn't usually have too much of their normal lives affecting the travels. This seems to be more of a thing with Moffat and Chibnall's eras, where they seem to still have normal lives and the adventures kind of in between them, and especially with Moffat ones, especially with Clara. It makes a bit more sense with Series 10, of course, when we get to that, but with Clara, it's a bit odd. Anyway, so Clara is teaching at Coal Hill School, and it's a slightly different building to what it was in The Day of the Doctor. And honestly, I think when we get to the caretaker, it looks more like a primary school from my point of view. It's not so bad here, but I think when we get to the caretaker, it looks like a primary school. But when I rewatch the caretaker, I'll make a final decision on that. It does look a bit more high schooly in other places, like classrooms, and places in here in the series, in Series 9. But there are some places that look like a primary school. But more on that later. It does move once again to another building in the class spin-off series, so I wouldn't be surprised if when it pops up again eventually, it'll be a completely different building. So Clara's now teaching at Coal Hill, as we know from The Day of the Doctor, and a flashback sequence to Deep Breath, which kind of ties in with that story, but otherwise would not have been necessary anyway. That flashback introduced the character of Courtney Woods, so boy, what a great character we've got here. I'll talk more about her when we get to the caretaker and into Kill the Moon, but let's just say she's a kind of an annoying character, so to speak. The actress does a good job, but she's an annoying character. She only gets a scene here and a scene in the last story. I don't think she turns up in Time Heist, and she doesn't turn up in Ropes of Sherwood or Listen, so her next appearance is the caretaker. And then although she's mentioned in Listen, we also get introduced to Danny Pink in this story, who is a former soldier who is now a maths teacher. There's been an event in his soldier days that he's feels a lot of guilt and sorrow for, but we're not going to talk about that until we get to the finales review, Dark Water, Death and Heaven, as that's going to be something that was revealed in that story, so we won't talk about it until then. Also, the receptionist likes him quite a bit. She kind of fancies him, eyeing him up a little bit. This is the scene with Courtney, by the way. I'm sorry to say to said receptionist, she won't hear me, but because she's a television character and it's been 6 years. But I'm sorry to say that Danny's going to be hooking up with Clara, Clara Oswald, in this series. So yeah, sorry about that. So anyway. After meeting Danny, Clara then joins the Doctor in an adventure into the Daleks, so to speak. They go with Journey Blue and two other red shirts, who don't have a huge personalities, but they're alright, I guess. There's a guy and a girl. The girl gets a bit more to do than the guy. That's not a gender thing, by the way. The male character the male soldier just dies first. To be honest, he's not that needed anyway. Neither of them are, actually. They're just sacrifices so that Journey Blue, Clara, and the Doctor can do their stuff. Meanwhile, the general upstairs, who is actually Journey Blue's uncle, is monitoring things from upstairs. The characters inside the Dalek manage to find their way into the Dalek, and we get a couple of bits throughout the story where it kind of implies that the Dalek is kind of more the Dalek casing, the armor, the tank has more of a is more responsible for the Dalek feeling the hatred emotions than the actual mutant, and this is only touched upon a few times in this story. It seems like the Dalek tank computer itself is the one that hates it, and then the mutant, upon getting a crack in the a radiation leak in its suit, starts to be good because it saw a star being born. The whole stuff of the Dalek suit being the thing that drives the hate and the motivation of the Dalek is a little annoying, but it's not so much touched upon here, but it's going to become more apparent in the next Dalek story, The Magician's Apprentice and The Witch's Familiar, and I will most certainly be ranting about that, most likely, in that story's review. So the Doctor goes up to speak to Rusty, who is what he's calling the Dalek now. After fixing the radiation link, they find out the Dalek is it's back to normal. It was an ill Dalek, and they made it better, and now it's gone back to being bad. So it contacts its fleet and exterminates people on the ship, leading to a Dalek versus human fight on the ship. However, the Doctor then has to try and make the Dalek good again. So Clara and Journey have to re-show it its memory of the stars, and the Doctor tries to link his telepathicness into his thoughts into the Dalek, which then after seeing the Doctor's mind, decides to, following his ideology, the Doctor has hatred for the Daleks, and so Rusty develops hatred for the Daleks, proper hatred this time, rather than being confused by the radiation leakage. And so it goes on a rampage of the Daleks to exterminate all surviving Daleks and then become the destroyer of the Daleks. And we don't ever see Rusty again until the 12th Doctor's final story, Twice Upon a Time. But we set up basically the destroyer of the Daleks, a Dalek going against the Daleks. And we don't play off that again until the Doctor needs access to the Daleks' neural pathway web thing, a bit like what the Cybermen have, or like the Matrix on Gallifrey. It's their Hive connector thing, blah blah, whatever. But until he needs that, Rusty just goes off and does nothing. Doesn't really do much. Will we see Rusty again in the future? Maybe in expanded media, but in the television series, I wouldn't hold your hopes up. Unless it's going to tie in with a bigger story arc that connects parts of the show throughout it's the whole history, I wouldn't get your hopes up. So that's basically Into the Dalek. Also, this episode seems to have the Doctor seems to hate soldiers all of a sudden. Considering only a few episodes, he met an incarnation who was a soldier in a war and said a story saw that incarnation redeemed. It turns out he was not a villainous incarnation, but actually possibly the most important one. He was the one who was the Doctor on the day it wasn't possible to get it right. So, yeah, that incarnation is redeemed in his future incarnation's eyes. The 12th Doctor remembers him because the 11th Doctor did, unless this is the case of an incarnation forgets their multi-Doctor adventures when they regenerate. But I don't think that works in the TV series. That's more of a fan series thing. But unless that actually does happen, and 12 does have to hurry up and save Gallifrey then quickly. But then in that case, Clara will remember, and even with Hell Bent happening with the memory wipe, I still think that 12th Doctor would still remember about the War Doctor, or at the very least would by the end of Twice Upon a Time. Either way, he hasn't forgotten his memories yet, so about Clara yet. So where has this hatred of soldiers suddenly come from? He doesn't really like Johnny Blue for being a soldier, and he's going to have conflict with Danny Pink because he was a former soldier. Oh, that's why. Yeah, it's so that they can have conflict. It's not because he's Clara's boyfriend and the Doctor's like, he's kind of like the parent, the Doctor's like the father figure. He's like, I don't know. We'll see how you go. Okay, actually, you're pretty good. Actually, yeah. Okay, you can date my best friend. No, instead of that, we get Danny Pink was a former soldier. The Doctor doesn't like soldiers, and they only write in the Doctor not liking soldiers for that conflict, and it's forced. It is forced. The Doctor hating soldiers comes absolutely out of nowhere. Look, he used to be the scientific advisor of the unit. Apart from salutes, he has no problem, and salutes and guns, he doesn't have a problem with soldiers, that not much, or at least not the unit ones anyway. And he was a soldier during the bloody Time War. And he was redeemed for actions he did commit and actions he thought he committed. So, where does this hate of soldiers come from? Like I said, it's a forced way to have conflict between him and Danny Pink later in the series. this is also not that good of a story. This is one of the weaker Dalek stories I've seen. It's alright. It's got some good stuff. When the idea came around, the idea of going into the Dalek sounded really cool, really interesting. It's basically the invisible enemy, but inside a Dalek, and rather inside the Dalek casing rather than inside um, the flesh bits, so inside the bones and lungs and stuff, like we did in the invisible, or in the head, like Invisible Enemy. But no, it wasn't that great. It was a little underwhelming, a bit dull, not so great. Also, whilst I said the 12th Doctor's personality in the last episode was pretty good, and whilst it would get better, of course, this is one of the times where it's kind of we can see the not being so wholeheartedly and not really caring that much, and he does kind of be is more of a logic thinking machine rather than a caring one in some scenes. And although we do get the caring stuff here later on, more so. And also, I'm not so keen on the faffing around in the suit with Clara and the others when they're faffing out. Oh, what should we do? Blah blah blah. What have we learned, etc. It's not. It's a bit of a faff around. And also the idea of a no good Dalek. There's no such thing as a good Dalek, but there was an entire graphic novel a few years earlier about it. And also, there have been cases of Daleks being good in the past. Remember Evil of the Daleks? Remember Dalek Khan, after rescuing Davros from the Time War, decided to manipulate events so that they would be defeated? So yeah, we have had good Daleks before, so yeah, again, I don't really get why there's no such thing. Especially as it's hard to believe. I mean, yeah, okay, it's hard to believe, but it's not impossible. We've had it before. The supporting characters don't really do it that much for me. I mean, Journey Blue's okay. She could have become a companion later down the line, and like I said, with the potential of Christina being a companion, they could have improved over the course of the series. That's not going to happen, but to be honest, I'm not too worried. Unlike with Christina, who I think definitely would have made a great companion further along if David Tennant did one more series, if he did Series 5 made by Russell T Davies and the crew. Christina D'Souza could have been the companion of that series. I think she would have developed into a better character than we saw in her first episode, which in reality is her only episode, Planet of the Dead. What with Journey Blue, I'm not that worried about whether an alternative Series 8 or Series 9, or Series 10, whatever the order would have been in my universe, where she would have been a better companion. I'm not really so worried about her, but it could have worked. Like I said, first episode, not so much of a great character or blunt or still needs development later on. By the end of the series, you probably love them. But yeah, but I'm not terribly worried. As for the general guy, he's all right, I guess. He's a bit of a roller coaster in the episode because, like, oh, thank you for saving my niece, but this base is top secret, so I'm going to kill you. We don't take any prisoners, but we do have one who needs medical attention. Yeah, it's basically a roller coaster with him, just as the doctor said. So yeah, I'm not too worried about that guy either. So yeah, Into the Dalek, it doesn't really do an awful lot for me, apart from the fact that Daleks are in it. And even then, it's been a bit too soon since the last Dalek appearance. Even if it's been nearly 2 years since the last proper Dalek story, it's been a bit soon since the last Dalek major appearance in the Time of the Doctor, and it's kind of gotten a bit. It loses its impact a bit. If this was episode 7, 8, 9, or 10, this one might have been a bit better in terms of bridging the gap, or rather widening the gap between Dalek stories. It's like we got a bit more time, but since Time of the Doctor, here's the Dalek story for the series, instead of right after the first one. Love the Daleks, but I think we needed more time before the 12th Doctor's first encounter with them following the Time of the Doctor. The Daleks themselves are pretty good, and Nicholas Briggs once again does an amazing performance as the voice of the Daleks, especially Rusty. But at the end of the day, they're serviceable, more or less. Rusty's a great character, but the Daleks themselves are just serviceable. They're pretty great when they're fighting the battles. There's some great shots of them. Ben Wheatley directed these first 2 episodes, and he does a really good job in the direction, although there are some questionable camera positions in places. Not so much when we're on the front of the Dalek. That looks pretty cool. But yeah, this I don't know. I think the Daleks are good in this episode, with Rusty being even with being the best one, because he's a really good character. But Yeah, they're just good in this one. I sound like I'm not that enthusiastic about them anymore. It may be because it is so soon after Time of the Doctor. Also, I'm kind of getting a bit tired with this review now. Not the story's fault. I'm just getting a bit tired, worn out. Um, but okay, I'll wrap it up then. So Into the Dalek, it's a good episode, but it needed improvements. It's not entirely fun. It's got some decent moments. There's some okay supporting characters, but they're not remarkable. The Daleks are great and serviceable, especially Rusty, but they're not much more than that. This isn't going to be a game-changing Dalek story. Heck, it was supposed to be special going inside the Dalek story, but it didn't really turn out that way. And if it wasn't for Rusty's return in Twice Upon a Time, this could have been an easy, skippable Dalek story. If you've got a Dalek marathon, but you've only got time to watch the important ones, this one's an easy, skippable one. If it wasn't for the fact Rusty returns in Twice Upon a Time. But even then, you probably wouldn't be watching Twice Upon a Time anyway. Again, skipping stories for time, you probably would skip this one. So if for a Dalek marathon, and maybe even a Series 8 marathon or a Capaldi era marathon, if it wasn't for Into the Dalek or the Danny Pink setup stuff earlier on, then it probably would be a more one of the ones that would be skipped on a marathon viewing. And the fact it's a Dalek story. But overall, it's good. It's good. I was considering what score to give it, and I think I'm going to settle with a 6 out of 10. It's good, but it's not that great. I will be giving Into the Dalek a 6 out of 10. Yeah, it's alright. It's okay. This is one of my lesser favourite Dalek stories then. I was wondering a few days earlier, before rewatching the episode, what my ranking of the Dalek stories up to Resolution would be with, and I'll probably do a big ranking after Revolution of the Daleks, and after watching the Series 9 Dalek story as well. But I think more or less this one's going to be bottom 5, so to speak. I think, yeah, it's going to be bottom 5, along with all of the Stephen Moffat Dalek stories are going to be bottom 5, bottom 6. So don't be surprised if that happens in a future ranking video or videos. And it's probably going to be one of the lower down ones of the Series 8 one overall. How low would it be? We'll see. I'm expecting some of the other ones later down the line to be lower, but also quite a few to be higher as well. Well, at least some of them to be higher. And some of those will be higher than Deep Breath too. So anyway, next time we'll be moving on to episode 3, Robot of Sherwood, which is an episode I really enjoyed. I thought that was a really fun and entertaining story. So I'll see you guys next time for my review of Series 8, Episode 3 of Doctor Who, Robot of Sherwood. See you guys then. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Nicholas Payne YouTube channel. So 2 episodes in 8 months. Yeah. So 8 months over 2 episodes. Yeah. I think last time might have been Revolution of the Dark. No, not Revolution. That's the next. So yeah, Clara is now teaching at Coal Hill, as we know from Into the Dalek. And he does not like being reminded of the war. Not so much the war, but fighting. But sorry to say, but Danny and Clara. That's nothing to do with gender, by the way. That's just how the characters work. Considering just a few stories ago, he just got he just met an earlier incarnation who was not more. Considering only a few incarnations, or at least one of them, the one who got it right on the day it wasn't possible to, the one who. It's not because he's Clara's boyfriend. It's so that he's because Danny Pink. It's not like that. It's actually like they actually have. There is the conflict is only. Yeah, it's only the. Yeah. Okay, the story itself is this story is also not that great of a story. I'm not that worried about it. It's not. So yeah, there's no excuse. If this was episode 9 or 10, or even 7 or 8, this could have been a really great story. Well, actually, no. Well, again, or don't have them in the time of the Doctor. Yeah, it still would. Yeah, it's still one episode more than Day of the Doctor, but still. Then yeah, it is just one more episode, and since the Day of the Doctor, it would be a 3-story gap, but still, it would have made it a bit better. This is probably my least favorite. So, I'll just tune.
Exterminate. Daleks conquer and destroy. 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 Oh boy. Goodness gracious.